Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That guy over there, the good-looking one, is Nick Wright. But this guy over here, Danny Canal, in for Chris Carter today.
What's up, man? How we doing? I feel a little guilty because I feel like there's this huge energy void that I'm supposed to fill, and there's no way you can fill it with just one person.
In the last 12 seconds, you actually just filled it. But guess what?
Right.
I got a text from Cece that said, "Good morning." So I wrote back, FOMO, because it's more a reference, and he wrote back, "Did you mean faux show?" I wrote,
I don't know what FOMO means.
Fear of missing out.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Why is Cece up at 6 o'clock in the morning? Anyway, Danny Canal, calling college football games for Fox. We really appreciate you hanging out with us today while Cece's away. And more importantly, you actually tend to sometimes agree with me on some of my points, which I don't have any part of on this set.
Here we go. Team Jenna, we got you.
We love having you here. All right, let's start off with some baseball. The World Series is underway, and what a pitching matchup we had last night. Clayton Kershaw quieted those naysayers who questioned his postseason play as the Dodgers pulled out the 3-1 win. Kershaw threw 11 strikeouts in 7 innings, giving up only 1 run. He's only the 4th pitcher in World Series history to throw at least 10 strikeouts with 0 walks. Clayton Kershaw, what say you after the game?
It was important for me to establish pitches, be able to throw multiple things for strikes, and I'm thankful I was able to do that tonight. And I made a few mistakes. Obviously, Bregman got me, and then threw one pretty much down the middle to Correa that he popped up that could have gone a long way too. So, you know, for the most part, though, it was, you know, I'll take it.
Oh, I'm certain he will. Danny, I'll start with you. We all know the knock on Clayton Kershaw. He is great during the regular season. He's got some struggles late in postseason games. So how impressive was Clayton Kershaw's performance last night, game 1?
It really has been his one knock because he's been as dominant as any pitcher we've ever seen in the regular season, and he hasn't been able to get it done for whatever reason. I don't think it bothers him. He's pretty unflappable when you look at his demeanor. It looks like nothing would bother him.
Yeah.
But if there were any critics, it would say he has to step up and do it on the big stage. And there was no bigger stage than what you saw last night. And how about the recall of him? This is what I love about pitchers, their mindset. He remembers his 2 mistakes. Out of 85-ish pitches that he threw last night, only 2 probably missed his spot. 1 he got burnt on, the Bregman solo home run. But as far as just dealing, he looked unstoppable last night. It was just a fun performance to sit back and enjoy greatness on display.
I'm so happy that Kershaw did what he did last night because he deserved it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get lost in the moment. And this guy's the greatest ever, that guy's the greatest ever. You know, I'm a guy that says that about LeBron, so people maybe take other greatest ever comments by me with a grain of salt. But the numbers say Clayton Kershaw in the regular season is the greatest pitcher we have ever seen. In the last 100 years, does anyone have a better ERA than him? No.
Few would disagree with
in the last 100 years, does anyone have a better whip than him? No. Has anyone ever had more than 7 straight sub-3 ERA seasons? No, but Kershaw's got 9 of them. Like, you can go down the list of every reason this guy in the regular season has been the best pitcher, not just of the modern era, but of any era. But the playoff knock was a fair one. Even if it was just a few bad innings against the Cardinals and a couple bad pitches in one game, to have a career ERA of 2.5 and a postseason ERA of 4.5, that's a real thing. Which is why I was so happy last night. Because this was the biggest game of his life. First World Series game. First World Series game for his franchise in 30 years. And he was utterly and thoroughly dominant and made it look easy.
So now you get to the 7th inning, which is where he tends to have issues. How nervous do you guys get when Altuve comes up and Correa comes up? And now you're like, okay, hold on. Is he going to be the guy that we're seeing all season, or is he going to be the guy that sort of added to that narrative? Do you get nervous?
A little bit, but I think Dave Roberts does too, right? I mean, his manager went to the bullpen. That's the only thing I would have liked to see from Clayton Kershaw was him get a complete game. Like, because I think he would have been able to handle it. But when you have the best bullpen in the game and you have the luxury of going to Morrow and going to
and
Jansen.
who are all rested.
Like, who are ready to go and so dominant. But I wish we would have just let him go and seen if he could have got the complete game.
Obviously, Dave Roberts made his decision was vindicated because Morrow and Jansen came out. I think they threw a combined 16 pitches. It was an efficient 6 outs they got to get the win. I first guessed them, so I want to second guess it on television, I guess. I think in sports, coaches and managers need to ask themselves this question more often. What does my opponent hope I do? And let's not do that. In football, it's 4th and inches from the goal line. My opponent is hoping I kick the field goal usually. So why don't we go ahead and go for it? I think the Astros were praying that after 7, that Roberts went to the bullpen. Please get Clayton Kershaw out of this game. We haven't had a runner in scoring position all night. So I didn't think he should go to the bullpen, not just because I wanted Clayton to be able to get, if not a complete game, at least 8 innings. I wouldn't have had a problem with him going to Kenley Jansen because he's been their closer and been dominant all year. I had a question after 84 pitches. You're taking him out before the 8th inning, but it worked out. I didn't want them to do it because I wanted, like you were saying, him to have it, and I thought it gave the Astros, not that I'm rooting against the Astros, but it gave them a chance to get back in the game when it felt to me like Clayton could have pitched 12 innings yesterday. Yeah. I mean, it seemed like the Astros had no chance. He was throwing first pitch strikes. He was striking them out with curveballs or sliders or fastballs. He was dominant the entire game. So it worked out, and I understand why Dave Roberts wanted to stick with what he's been doing all year, which is trusting the bullpen. I guess maybe selfishly I wanted to see Clayton be able to at least go 8.
Are managers more gun-shy in the World Series? Are they, you never want to see someone play and coach and manage nervous, right? Well, I don't want this, I don't want him to be in one pitch too long. Like, I don't want to second-guess myself. But you're right. He did the thing that he's been doing all year long is great. But you wonder, what would be better to have that dramatic, like, momentum, beautiful story ending that Clayton Kershaw goes the whole game, or do you not want to you were so worried about second-guessing yourself?
I think he's stuck with his game plan, right? And you heard Clayton Kershaw after the game say, I'm glad I got my 7. I feel like that's what Dave Roberts said to him going into that game, said, hey, give us 7. Anything else on that is icing on the cake. And so once you got to 7, got into a very little bit of trouble, I think Dave Roberts said, hey, we're going to go with what's been our bread and butter. Because the bullpen have been incredible. They've pitched 25 scoreless innings in the postseason. They're remarkable with what they're going. And I also wonder if Dave Roberts is also aware of the postseason reputation that Kershaw has, however undeserved it is or however unfortunate or inaccurate it is about his scope as a pitcher as it's a whole
Well, you knew
entirety.
You were getting out there safely. Like,
yes.
once he had gone 7, giving up 1 bad pitch, it was like, hey, if I sit him down, no one's going to blame Clayton for this. And by the way, even if in the moment I wouldn't have done it, Dave Roberts is thrilled right now because this thing could go 7 games. You might need to pitch Clayton Kershaw at some point on short rest. And the fact that he was able to get out of there on what 84 pitches, 83 pitches, it's easier to use him 3 times in this series if you ultimately need to. And, I mean, the relievers were great. I mean, it was out quickly.
We can't dismiss what Dallas Keuchel did because he may not have gotten a ton of strikeouts, but he came in there and he pitched a great game too. But it also brings up a little bit of this Dodgers offense, which you were excited about this morning with the play of Turner, which was really sort of unexpected.
It's just unbelievable. It's just, I understand that Justin Turner's been a different player since he came to the Dodgers. One of our great producers, Sam Pepper's a diehard Mets fan, and he will rant about the fact that the Mets just let Justin Turner go. Everyone saw it coming. Well, I didn't see it coming. Right. I don't think a lot of people saw this guy coming. The Mets let him go because he was a below-average major leaguer. He goes to the Dodgers, turns into an above-average major leaguer in the regular season, and a superstar in the postseason. I know there wasn't a runner in scoring position when he hit the game-winning home run, what ended up being the game-winning home run, but in the postseason of his career, he's batting .700 with runners in scoring position. He had a huge home run in the previous series. He has the big home run to start the World Series. He's absolutely remarkable, and no one could have seen this coming.
No, he was a utility infielder for the Mets for 4 years. So he was trying to figure out, how do I survive as a major leaguer? The Mets are trying to figure out a spot for him to play. But these types of stories are why I love sports. Like, I love the unlikely heroes that step up and thrive in the spotlight. So
Nick was an unlikely hero.
That's right.
Look at him.
Yeah, exactly. So he's out there. He just finished with the Mets, and he's out playing at a Cal State Fullerton alumni baseball game. Like, this is where he is. Tim Wallach, bench coach for the Dodgers, is seeing this game, notices him and says, hey, we should sign him. We should give him an opportunity. And now look where he is, a World Series hero. Like, I love this about sports.
And one note before we move on for the Astros. There's 4 of these games in Los Angeles, right? Mm-hmm. So for the Astros to win the World Series, they're going to have to win 1 of the games in Los Angeles. That's the math on this. They're going to figure out how to score runs on the road. In the postseason this year at home, scoring over 5 a game. On the road, they're scoring 2 a game. Like, they've got to figure, unless they're going to win a 2-1 game, like, by the way, they have done in this postseason, they're going to have to figure out a way to score some runs outside of Minute Maid Park.
Well, they have a ton of time to figure that out because Game 2 is tonight.
Right.
So they better get on. They better be up right now figuring that out. Right now, Astros. Greg Jennings joins us here. Is home field advantage a bigger deal? We're off topic for a split second.
Yes.
In college football than in any other sport, would you say?
Maybe college basketball, but yeah, in college sports, college football.
Sure. Legit, right? You think it's worth it?
100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah.
No, I
it's
would
a
say
huge advantage.
College football and college basketball
Are the
is
two
the two biggest by far.
Okay, awesome. Anyway, Greg, Danny, Nick, let's get going. We're talking a little Patriots now. They are tied for the best record in the AFC at 5-2. They've won 3 games in a row, but it doesn't mean Bill Belichick is resting on his laurels. Shocker. Belichick is still discussing the possibility of improving his roster.
One thing about us, I think that other teams in the league know that we're open for business. We're not afraid to make a trade. So if they're interested in trading somebody, we're usually a team that gets called because, like I said, people think that and know that we're open on those discussions.
All right, Greg, Bill Belichick, open on those discussions. They're open for business. Do the Patriots need to improve this roster?
Absolutely. Why not? This is why we're always talking about them at the end of the regular season. This is why we're talking about them in the playoffs. This is why we typically see them in the Super Bowl, because Bill Belichick gets it. He's one of those coaches that players and coaches alike probably look at him as, man, this guy's prideful or he's a little both. No, he gets it. He just flat out gets it. And his players understand that no matter who I am, what I bring to the table, he's trying to improve his roster. He's trying to better his positioning of getting back to the Super Bowl and retaining the Lombardi Trophy every single year. And this is what makes their roster so unique. This is what makes their team so unique. This is why we always talk about, well, they just have guys, because that's all he needs is guys to buy in that understand you may not be here next year. You may not be here for the entire 16, 17-week season because I'm trying to get better every year. And if you don't fit, I'm going to ship you out.
They definitely need to get better, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. They're still 22nd in the league in rush defense, 32nd in pass defense, even though they were a little bit better this past weekend. But nobody churns their roster, the bottom half of that roster, too, because about 35 positions are probably safe. But that bottom tier, 36 through 53, those ones are being constantly evaluated. The only problem I would say here, and I mean, it's not a problem because Bill Belichick's one of the best talent evaluators you'll get, I don't think you're going to see any type of name brand that you would say, oh, that looks like a perfect trade. You'll see them make some move that we probably don't even notice. It'll be somebody
Not a
they
big
sign.
splash.
Yeah.
And that's what Belichick does.
Absolutely.
That's their thing.
A guy that was one of their best defensive players on Sunday night was Jonathan Batamosi. Am I getting that correct? Like, he was just on someone else's roster as a special teamer. He came in and was playing significant snaps at corner. So, yes, the Patriots, and by the way, every team, by the way, should be looking to improve the roster if they can, but the Patriots in particular, because they are a team with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations that does not have anything close to a legitimate Super Bowl defense. One note for the other teams around the league. Take advantage of this, by the way. Call up the Patriots, find out who on your roster they want, and then figure out how you're not using them properly.
Right.
Give them a contract extension, do something, because this is where the Pats are elite. Now, they have some misses. They, when they traded Chandler Jones, what they got back for it was Jonathan Cooper, former top 10 pick. They're like, it didn't work in Arizona. Maybe it'll work here. It didn't work. They traded for Coney Ely. They ended up cutting him, and he is actually excelling with the Jets right now. So they're not perfect on this, but more often than not, they get the better end of these trades. Why this year in particular, this is interesting to me, because the Patriots, you're right, they are always looking to do this. But two things are special about this year. One, they do have a glaring weakness. Defense, pass defense in particular. But two, the Patriots this offseason operated a little differently than usual. They traded draft picks for players. They usually go the other way. They will trade you a player for a draft pick, but they traded a first rounder for Brandon Cooks. They traded down in order to get Coney Ely. They traded for Dwayne Allen. I think Belichick realizes the window is shortening, and so the Patriots might be a team that during the season trades a future draft pick for a player that can help them right now, which is not something we typically see the Patriots or really any team do at what is often a very boring trade deadline in the NFL.
Yeah, and their process, the way they look at things, their big bulletin board is a lot different than I think the other 32 teams or the other 31 teams in the league, where they play for right now. A lot of teams build for the future. The Patriots are building for future, but they're playing and trying to compete and win now all the time. And you see, even with the Houston Astros and MLB, they destroyed their team to build up for where they are now, but they were terrible in years prior. The Patriots are never really terrible because of trades like this. And if you're the other 31 teams, this is a question to you guys. Are you a little apprehensive if they call and say, hey, can we get this guy? Would you really like?
No, we've seen it. We saw Wes Welker be a nothing player in Miami and turn into a Pro Bowler in New England. We saw Danny Woodhead not be able to make the roster with the Jets and then turn into a quality player in New England. We've seen it across the board.
The New England Patriots are not going to rebuild as long as number 12 is still their quarterback. They are not going to come close to rebuilding as long as they still end up, in the playoffs, deep into the playoffs, first-round buys, with Belichick at the head, Kraft at the top. Like, they can't look ahead. They're going to keep looking to right now until there's just an iota of, like, crack in the armor that, wait, there is no right now. Now we have to start thinking, like where the Giants are right now. I think after last year, the Giants were like, no, we're still in it. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe we're not in it. Maybe we do have to start looking ahead. And there's no team seemingly better at putting all of that together than the New England Patriots, except for that cutoff sweatshirt that he's wearing on that picture behind you, which I have to look at this entire segment, which is one of the worst things I've ever seen, and I've seen him wear doozies. There's no team better at doing all that than the Patriots.
They've even had more of a sense of urgency in this post-offseason, because they're coming off the Super Bowl win. I think it caught everybody's eye, like, whoa, they're making a lot of moves. Like, why aren't they complacent? This was by far the most aggressive they had been as far as getting after there, trying to make impact players. Big blockbuster moves that they were trying to make. But there's also something I think this does, and we talked a little bit before the show started. This sends a message, which is always there for the Patriots. But when he goes out there and says publicly, "Hey, we're open for business,"
to the rest of
the rest of the team, the guys in that locker room are saying, "Uh-oh." And there's a reason why they don't have the letdowns, the 2 or 3 week stretches where you'll see teams go into a funk. They never see those because players are worried if they have a funk, they're gone.
Right.
The other thing that Belichick knows that I guess everyone in the league knows, but maybe isn't as keen to right now, is what the Patriots have coming up. So they play the Chargers this week. They then have a bye, okay? After the bye, 5 of their next 6 games are away from home. 5 out of 6, which is 3 in a row is a rarity in the NFL. 5 out of 6 is almost unheard of. One of those games is outside of the country. It's in, I believe, Mexico City against Oakland. So he knows that they have a brutal part of their schedule coming up. Not just in opponents where you go to Denver, to Pittsburgh, Buffalo, you go to Buffalo, which has been a better team than we thought. Miami's been a better team than we thought. But the fact that you're only going to be at home between this weekend against the Chargers, one time until the end of December. So they have to get better. They have played one good game defensively all year. That was this past Sunday night. I know that they held the Bucs and it was the Bucs game and the Jets game to a combined 31 points, but they still in those 2 games gave up combined 800 yards of offense, 600 yards passing. Like the one full, complete game of defense they've played was this past Sunday night. That does not mean things are fixed for them defensively.
Are you in or out in the Pats? Because I remember the first time I was here, you guys, you even laughed at me, Jenna.
Yeah,
I was a little disappointed in you because after that Week 1 loss to the Chiefs, you guys were selling that Patriots stock. Are you in or out moving forward?
First of all, in or out was a few segments ago, but I am out on the Patriots as a true Super Bowl contender.
All right.
That's I think I said from the beginning I thought they would win the AFC East, but I don't think they're a 12-win team this year. I don't think they're a Super Bowl caliber team this year.
But listen, you talked about that schedule, and that is a brutal roll schedule, except for the fact that the Patriots have not played lights out at Gillette. It hasn't exactly been like automatic wins and dominating wins for them. So if there's any like sliver of anything there, it's that.
I don't think it really matters where they play as long as they got Belichick and Tom.
While the Eagles improved to 6-1 on Monday, they got some bad news on Tuesday. Left tackle and Mark Schlereth's favorite player, Jason Peters, tore both his ACL and MCL. That's got to hurt. In Monday's win over the Redskins, he will officially miss the remainder of the season. Stink, how big of a blow is this loss for Carson Wentz and that Eagles offensive line?
It's a huge, I mean, an absolutely huge blow. And they wanted Jason Peters to stick around simply because of the pass rushers in the NFC East, and also they're playing the AFC West as well. So they've got great pass rushers. They have 2 bookend tackles, and you could argue the best bookend tackles in football, Lane Johnson. And the plan was...
Who they just got back, by
right,
the way. So
the plan was we're going to move Lane Johnson eventually over to left tackle because he's so athletic. But this year, the best thing for us is to make sure if we can keep Jason Peters from retiring, because remember, he's 14 years into this thing. The guy is a phenomenal football player. I mean, it certainly weakens them. And I don't know what their plan will be, if they'll try to make that move mid-season, if they just leave Lane Johnson there and try to cover up that hole.
Danny, what does this do for a quarterback's confidence to have a guy you really trust on that O-line right in front of you go down for the year when you're playing as well as you're playing?
It's tough, but it can affect you. Like, you can't let it. You still have to go out there, go through your progressions. I think you have a couple things that go on. One, you're seeing Carson Wentz, who's one of the more mobile quarterbacks we're seeing right now, and he's really thriving under that. He's been well under pressure, been pretty solid under pressure this year. Shoot, I mean, the other night he looked like he was sacked a couple times, was able to elude either to make big running plays or to find a guy down the field. But I would ask Stink, like, what is Vitae? Is there, how much is he serviceable? Because I think you can mask a little bit. You can start sliding protections. You can kind of keep your back into chip, which will affect the play calling. But I don't think it's the, I mean, obviously you never want to lose a left tackle, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Talking to their coaches, they love him. It's just raw. Like, you know, I mean, that's one of the things you're going to have to deal with. I just oftentimes you get to this point in the season and you'll see coaches go, well, let's move this guy from right to left, and then, you know, let's take Lane Johnson and move him to left because he's that athletic, and then let's put our other guy over here at right tackle, and then you open up 2 issues. Because it is hard to flip from one side to the other. And I always tell people, I mean, it took me a year to move from right guard to left guard to where I felt comfortable. It took me a total season to do that. And I always tell people, it'd be like asking a big-time left-handed hitter in the 9th inning to, oh, man, take this one from the right side of the dish because, you know, why not?
People think with offensive line that it's just
it's interchangeable.
You hear people all the time, if a left tackle struggling, well, just make him the left guard. Like, well, that's obviously the easier spot. Like, people just assume with the tackle, with the offensive line, that the positions are interchangeable except for center, that you can shuffle things around. And I think people do think, well, yeah, Lane Johnson was always eventually going to be your left tackle, so why not do it now? When in reality, it seems like, from talking to you before the show and you right now, that's an off-season change. But what we haven't seen a significant sample of Carson Wentz without Jason Peters. But we have seen a significant sample of him without Lane Johnson.
Yeah.
Everyone believes, rightfully so, that left tackle is more important than right tackle. But Wentz was 2 different players, and we can show you, in his career, Wentz with Lane Johnson and without Lane Johnson. I mean, it's a 100 passer rating to a 73 passer rating. The team's record falls off a cliff. The yards per pass fall off a cliff. All of it. So part of that was during the mid part of his rookie season. I understand that. But he does seem like a guy who, at least what we've seen so far, excels when his offensive line's intact, not so much when it's not.
But let me just kind of, that narrative, the left tackle is far more important. That has changed since we've become more of a spread, 11 personnel, 3 wides, tight end, outside the box. It's really changed. Think about the pass rushers. Khalil Mack lines up, not exclusively, but most of the time he's over the right tackle. Von Miller lines up over your right tackle. Joey Bosa, that's where he lines up the majority of the time. So I think that has changed to some degree. I think both are exceptionally important, but the old days of, hey, just put a road grader over there at right tackle and we have to have our athlete at left tackle, those days have changed because it's no longer 21 personnel. It's no longer 2 backs and a tight end in regular formations. It's so much more spread than it's ever been that both tackles are vitally important. So I just think you would be making a huge mistake if you move Lane Johnson over to left tackle because you have that issue.
And the one thing we're talking about all season so far is parity in the NFL this year. And if these guys are really going to stand out, they already own their division, but if they're going to stand out in the league, they're going to have to figure out a way to win because every other team is dealing with injuries like this. The Patriots started off right off the bat, you know, with a huge injury that they didn't have. They're just going to, I know it's on the offensive line.
I don't know. Every team's dealing with injuries. I was racking my brain before the show.
Don't do that. Don't. it's
the most
just bad for everybody.
significant
Oh, I smell
injury
smoke.
in the NFL this season is Aaron Rodgers. The second most significant injury, if you thought the Cardinals were going to be good, was Carson Palmer. I didn't
Oh, you
think
don't think Odell's bigger than that?
Oh, Odell was going to be the next on the list. The quarterback, if you thought the Cardinals could go to the playoffs, then now they can't.
Yeah.
But this might be the fourth. Like, after two quarterbacks and the best wide receiver in football, like, this is a big-time loss for them. I mean, did you say he was your favorite player?
That dude, and I've said this many times before, I'll say it again, he attended the University of Narnia. He is an absolute freak show. This is, pound for pound, maybe the best athlete on the planet. I mean, literally, when you watch him move, he is like just about like none other. There's 3 or 4 guys I love to watch play tackle. That guy is my favorite player to watch.
So are the Eagles then still the best team in the NFL?
I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. When I look at even the Seahawks, like I look at the Seahawks, I think they've got the experience. I think Russell Wilson's a better quarterback, and that shouldn't really be a knock at Carson Wentz. I mean, Russell Wilson's been really good.
Can't believe how much you hate
Their
Carson
defense
Wentz.
is better. I feel like they're a more complete team. And I mean, but it's not by much. But I think when you look at the NFL, it's a war of attrition. Like it really is. If you're going to win a Super Bowl, you have to have some luck, health-wise. And if you do lose somebody, you better hope it's not your quarterback. And it's a position where you can kind of mask it a little bit. And that's going to be the challenge for the Eagles today.
And, I mean, it should also, the Eagles also lost middle linebacker Jordan Hicks with an Achilles injury. Like, the injuries are going to be piling up league-wide. I don't think right now, Jenna, you can definitively say anyone's the best team in the league. I know that the Eagles have the best record.
Is your opinion of what the Eagles were before the injury different than what it is now?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, not what they've accomplished so far. Like, that's set in stone. But, yeah, I think the reason Wentz has been great this year is he's been the single best quarterback in the league on third down. He's the best pass rating on third down, the best yards per attempt on third down. He's been great on third down. Well, one thing that your offensive line is always important, but for a quarterback, third and long is about the situation where it's most important. I don't think he'll be able to be as effective without Jason Peters.
Most of those third down things, if you watch all their games, most of the third downs are extending plays, holding on to the football, finally getting himself under duress because things aren't open early, and then what he's been able to do off schedule. That's where he's been so good. That's where he's been dynamic, off schedule. And you talked about he's sacked. All of a sudden, he's out of it. He's like a magician. He's out of
the whole country got to see it on Monday night.
That's what he's done. And on third downs has been far more about him holding the ball and making something happen than it has been boom, ball out.
The 64-yard touchdown pass he had, every quarterback in the NFL can make that. Great throw, beautiful, but he had clean protection, and it was just a straight fade route, a go route. But the difference for him, and this is what separates Aaron Rodgers and even Tom Brady to some extent, when things break down, and you don't have to be a great runner, you have to buy some time, and you have to figure out a way to make a play when things go south. And they mask bad play calls. They mask
you have to be what I call it's like being a shortstop. You have to be accurate off platform.
Yep.
In those situations. And when I look at a quarterback, I don't think of a pitcher in baseball. I think of a shortstop. You've got to be able to throw from multiple platforms, and you have to be able to throw from multiple platforms accurately. And that's the difference.
I was like a bullpen catcher. That was what you looked at, saw me.
Moving on to LeBron James, who made his first start at point guard since 2005. The same year 40-year-old Virgin came out, also known as a long time ago. LeBron dished 13 assists to go along with 34 points in a win over the Bulls. LeBron spoke about his versatility after the game.
Ever since I was a kid, I've always learned every position on the floor. The point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center, and know all the plays, what they're doing, and what's the reads. To this day, obviously, still, if coach slides me to the 1, I know every set. He slides me to the 5, I know the 5, I know the 4, I know the 3, I know the 2, I know every single play in every single position.
Wow. He's really smart.
He's really good, too.
Nick, what was your biggest takeaway from LeBron's move over to point guard?
I am now more convinced than I've ever been that LeBron James is going to finish his career as the NBA's all-time leading scorer, passing Kareem, and top 3 all-time assists. And why did last night show it to me? Because last night showed me this guy can play till he's 40, 41, 42, because eventually the athleticism will leave LeBron James. But last night in his first game as the starting point guard in over a decade, what did he show? he can stand 35 feet away from the basket and have the biggest impact of anyone on the court on the game. Like, once the athleticism leaves him, he's going to need about another 7 years to catch Kareem, probably another 5.5 to pass Magic Johnson and become top 3 all-time in assists. And the athleticism will leave him before that. But his playmaking ability won't. His mind won't. And he had 13 assists. 8 of those were on three-pointers. Like, they're not cheap assists. They're the most valuable assists you can get. So the Cavs needed it, by the way, because they're a mess right now. The Bulls are terrible. And this was another game where they were trailing double digits in the first quarter. But LeBron and 4 shooters will always be an unstoppable offense.
Why do you feel differently about LeBron and his play not dropping off as opposed to Brady, who you think is going to tear off? Like, eventually he's going to slow down. I don't think we're seeing it yet. I mean, he hasn't shown any signs of it. But what's different as far as LeBron versus Brady?
I think, first of all, Brady's already 40. LeBron's 32 years old. So,
right. But NBA years are like dog years compared to the NFL years. Right?
But the other thing is, he's not getting tackled. Right. Brady has big people that are bigger than him hitting him. LeBron's bigger than basically everyone he plays against, and they're not allowed to hit him. So I just think I think the physical wear and tear. And the other thing is this. LeBron's the one athlete in NBA history, all-time great, that's never been injured. Ever. Like, the last time he got hurt, he was playing football. He broke his finger or his wrist in high school. Since then, he's never been injured. So I have no reason to believe his game's going to atrophy.
I agree with you. I agree with you on all your stuff. I just was curious as to why, when do we see a taper? And it's amazing the way he's been able to continue this level of play for as long as he can. I think there's a couple things I took away. He would be an all-star at any position, right? He could be a center full-time if he wanted to. And I remember earlier in his career when he said he wanted to develop the back-to-the-basket type game. He worked on that. Now he's showcasing his ability as he did early in his career as a point guard, which I think was a little bit of a shot at Kyrie, saying, hey, I can do what you did, and I can do it pretty damn good as well. But I also think it made a statement, Jenna, that I think he wants this MVP. Like, I think he wants this one, even more so than the years past, because I think it was always about the rings. And now that I think he's kind of realizing, hey, those rings might be tough to come by with what the Warriors are doing, let me start racking up some MVPs. And I think he saw what Russell Westbrook did last year with averaging the triple-double. He could if he wanted to. It's just a matter of, does he want to average that triple-double? He could do it. But I think he's going to have an MVP-type season because he wants it.
Nick, I was going to ask you if you're worried that he is required to do too much, right? That they need him to do too much. But then to your point that, it's not as taxing, its style of play, are you worried that the team needs him to do this much at this many minutes? And right now, it doesn't look like he's getting help from anyone else on that court.
No, because, the Cavs will figure out their right rotation by the end of the year. Right now, they don't have Isaiah Thomas. So essentially, because the Nets pick is a cool asset, but that's not helping you on the court. Ante Zizic, which came over in that trade, is a cool asset. He's not helping you on the court. What the Cavs essentially did was trade their second-best player for Jay Crowder. Like, of course they're going to look worse at the moment because Isaiah Thomas, the big asset in that trade's not there. But last year, LeBron led the NBA in minutes per game in year 14. And did he look tired in the finals? When he averaged a triple-double? No.
No, but for the next 3 months, he had Kyrie Irving with him.
But this is going
pour in some points.
But despite having Kyrie, Jenna, he was still playing 37, 38 minutes a game. And to Danny's point, I think LeBron desperately wants this MVP.
Yeah.
Last year was the first year he finished outside of the top 3 in 8 seasons.
Which is absolutely ridiculous.
Of course it's absurd, but there's a few things. So no player in league history has ever won an MVP in year 15. Michael has 5 of them. LeBron has 4 of them. Now, LeBron should have about 11 of them, but he has 4 of them. And I don't know that he's given up's not what you said, but I don't know if he's as pessimistic about the rings as you seem to be, and by the way, the general public seems to be. But what he does know is there are 2 paths to the general public joining me that he's the greatest player ever. One is the 6 rings. That's going to be a real tough path. And the other one is to have such overwhelming numbers, just such overwhelming counting stats. They showed it on the broadcast last night. No player in league history has averaged 25 points a game more than 11 seasons in a row, except for LeBron, who's done it 13, and we would assume now 14 seasons in a row. Those types of numbers will build his case.
I just wonder if he's going to be able to keep this enthusiasm, this attitude. Remember after the first game, he's like, I can't wait to get back on the court tomorrow. How is it post-All-Star break when you get in the NBA doldrums of May, April, when it's kind of, do they really need the 1 seed? Because they don't. It doesn't matter. Does he stay this enthusiastic about that? I think he will because of that MVP.
We do this thing in football, which we have done, where after every game, we try to step back and analyze. Okay, so these are their problems. This is what they're going to have to do to right the ship. Is this a must-win? Are they done? Are they going to win this? Like, we get very big picture. And it's very different in the NBA because you have 82 games.
5 times as many games.
Million games. And a million minutes. And it's very taxing on the players because they're playing almost every night. That being said, this is the third lineup in 4 days that the Cavs have used. So give me a sense, because CC always gives us a sense that you can't judge any football team, really. You break it up into quarters. Like, what are you looking for in the Cavs? Like, what is the duration of time you're looking for before you say, okay, now I'm getting a chance to see,
None of this is going to matter till Isaiah Thomas gets back. He's their second best player, and he's not going to be playing till January. What we did see last night was the adjustment helped. Dwayne Wade had his best game as a Cav by far. LeBron looked super comfortable at point guard. Point guard's the deepest position in the NBA, and shocker, the best point guard in the NBA is LeBron James. Like, we found that out last night. But no, we're just looking for the Cavs to continue to basically tread water, and they'll do better than that. But tread water until Isaiah Thomas gets back.
The Wizards and the Lakers face off tonight. All eyes are on Lonzo Ball because his father, LeVar, says Lonzo won't lose twice in 1 week. Stop talking so much. Wizards center Marcin Gortat. Gortat? Is it Gortat? Gortat responded to LeVar on Twitter saying, quote, man, please. John Wall will torture him for 48 minutes and then some emojis. Lonzo said that he doesn't pay any attention to the haters. Nick and Danny, I ask you, is LeVar making things harder for Lonzo in the NBA? Danny?
That's the easiest question you've asked me on today's show. It's so clear-cut that he's making Lonzo's life a nightmare on the court. He's basically woken up every single player he's going to face in every situation the entire season. And it hasn't stopped because you know what? When he got shut down by Patrick Beverley in the first game, he's out there still yapping, criticizing Patrick Beverley's relevancy in the NBA. So, I mean, all of it, I am so sick and tired of it. And you know who else I think is sick and tired of it? Lonzo himself.
Has to be. But he's not going to say anything. He'll never say anything to us.
Why?
Because he never has. And then if you're going to tell me there's not one thing his dad's done to annoy him up to this point, and every time a microphone's in his face, he says, it's all right.
Okay, well,
just let it blow off.
But
when you have guys that are coming at you and they're going to
I'm crazy. I'm going to take a man at his word in Lonzo's case, and Lonzo is now totally independent and rich on his own. And if he wanted to disassociate himself from his father, he could. He has chosen not to. And the question is he making his life harder in the NBA? Somewhat, sure, but I think it's for the good. I think that it will make Lonzo a better player, just like everything LeVar has done, it would appear, has helped make Lonzo a better player. Like, look, go ahead, Jenna.
Up until now. Now you're 3-4 games in. Every guard is gunning for you. Every guard goes into a game saying, if I do nothing else, I'm going to shut this kid down. There's no way you're going to tell me that makes him better.
Because that was Phoenix. Like, that's basically an extension of the summer league team.
Those guys didn't know.
No, they're not as equipped to do it. Like, they're not that good.
But you're now starting to hear it.
So hold on. Lonzo is one of the 2 best players on the Lakers, right? So without his father, people would not try to shut him down?
That
I don't understand.
Come into the game.
I would say, because the NBA, to me, let's just say the defensive end of the court is not as intense in the regular season as in the playoffs. But what you're seeing, if you're Lonzo now, is everybody's intensity level is bumped up, where they have a goal now. Like even Patrick Beverley, who's one of the best defenders in the. Why?
Because that's good.
Because he gets exposed like he did in the opening night.
Okay, listen, Patrick Beverley.
He's one of the best defensive players.
Not only is he one of the best defensive players in the NBA, he's the single best defensive point guard in the NBA. I lived in Houston, covered him when he got to the Rockets until I moved to Los Angeles. Beverley plays at that intensity every night. Like, Patrick Beverley is insane in that regard. Now, we'll see if John Wall, who is an okay defender, has the ability to be a great defender, has never really exhibited that, how much effort he really gives on the defensive end tonight. I'll be curious to see it. But listen. LeVar Ball is eccentric. LeVar Ball loves attention. LeVar Ball is clearly marketing his company and his son's company for, using our network, ESPN, all the networks to help enrich his family. LeVar Ball is also clearly a spectacular father. And LeVar Ball raised 3 boys who he decided when they were small children, 7, 8, 9 years old. These 3 boys are all going to be pro athletes.
Ooh,
and what
I don't know. I don't think the younger ones have anywhere near the upside that Lonzo has.
Okay, I'm not saying he made them into pro athletes. What I'm saying is he decided this is what I'm going to do. What that work has resulted in, all 3 having full rides to UCLA, that's about $1 million of net worth gain.
But Nick, what else has he done? The middle son might not even be able to play at UCLA. The
middle son, all he ended up with was a full athletic scholarship to one of the best schools in the country.
And now he's already selling shoes. So
yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess if I have a son. If I could make him a millionaire before he finished high school, and which he did for LaMelo, who's the one you're talking about, LaMelo, who is one of the top 5 kids in his class. So his oldest son was the 2nd pick of the draft and was one of the top kids coming out of school. Mm-hmm. His middle son, who probably has the least natural athletic ability, still has a full ride scholarship to UCLA. His youngest son is one of the top 5 kids in his high school class, full athletic scholarship to UCLA. For all...
Which he probably won't even be able to use because he's going to start selling shoes and having endorsements.
Listen, and I think that is, and I've talked about in regards to LaMelo, it does concern me about whether or not he's going to be able to play college basketball. I understand that. But we criticize, like one of our favorite American tropes is like the absentee black father. This is as invested, as dedicated, as involved as a father possibly. Did you guys see what Scott Brooks said yesterday? Scott Brooks, who coaches John Wall, who coaches the Washington Wizards, on LeVar. My father left me at 2. I would love to have my father around like LeVar is around, have him talk to him, pump me up with confidence. To me, that's every son's dream, and for some reason, he gets criticized.
All right, here's what bothers. Go ahead. You guys know? So here's what bothers me about this, because this has gotten into the African-American dad who's not there, and it's been like, this is a good thing. Just because you're there all the time doesn't, and he's probably a good dad. But do we say the same thing about Marv Marinovich, who wanted to have an NFL quarterback, and Todd Marinovich was there all the time, pumping up with confidence, but put such an emphasis on that the kid wasn't well-rounded and actually ended up destroying his career? Do we see it multiple times in tennis when you see tennis players who have overbearing fathers who are, basically trying to raise professional athletes?
If we see that one of these boys develops a substance abuse problem, if one of these boys develops off-the-court issues, then
this is where we're watching an experiment unfold. That's my concern. Hopefully they're fine with it, but we don't know that yet.
Right. So we'll check back in. We should check back in every couple of weeks just to see, because I'll give you everything. He was there. He supported those kids. He knew early on what he wanted those kids to do. They're good kids. They're well-spoken. They haven't gotten themselves into trouble. All that's great. My issue was, okay, now he's in the league. Let him play a little bit. Why make him a target when he's the 2nd pick of the draft? You're already kind of a target. Why make him a bigger target now? You want the kid to succeed. Let it go. Just hold off a beat and worry about your other 2 kids. Make sure they can actually get into school and be good kids.
I mean, and you mentioned Marinovich. What is true, and you know this playing football, they're overbearing dads of quarterbacks. Derek Carr's brother, his dad was showing up to Texans practices, not catching half the crap of this. So there is, I think, a fair racial component to this. I think the guy clearly loves his sons, and I think Lonzo's gonna have a target on his back no matter what.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.